Women's suffrage, a very controversial topic throughout history. Nowadays, we can never imagine anything like that happening in our time. For over 7 decades, men and women all over America have fought for the 19th Amendment and equality. Suffragettes worked through all of the propaganda, arrests, imprisonments, and more to win over the men and women opposing suffrage, and their hard work paid off in the end. Sakina Falls, July 1848. This convention will really popularize suffrage. Held in Sakina Falls, New York, this was the very first gathering focusing on suffrage. Organized by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, the convention lasted for 2 days. On the first day of the gathering, only women were permitted to enter, but men were later authorized to attend on the second day. The event was attended by about 300 participants, including about 40 men. 100 people signed the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions that will finally mark the beginning of the fight for women's suffrage. The Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions were made to make it so that both men and women's rights were equal, so that both women and men could vote and own property for themselves.
National Worcester Women's Rights Convention, October 1850. The National Worcester Women's Rights Convention was the second convention dedicated to women's rights and the very first national gathering for women all over America. Held on October 23rd through 24th, 1850, over 1,000 participants overflowed the Brinley Hall fighting for women's rights. The American Equal Rights Association, 1866. As the 14th Amendment is passed, the American Equal Rights Association is formed. Its founders, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass, and Lucy Stone, devoted the group to ensure equal rights of all Americans, including men, women, and every race.
1869, NWSA is formed. After the split of the American Equal Rights Association was sparked by the encouragement from the debate over the 15th Amendment, which allows black men to vote, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony decided to form the NWSA, National Women's Suffrage Association. 1869, Wyoming is the first state that lets women vote. On September 30th, 1869, Wyoming wrote the first state constitution to let women vote, but they weren't allowed to vote officially on December 10th.
1870, Utah agrees to adopt suffrage as the second state that allows women to vote, and the 15th Amendment is passed. Although it pleased many against racism and progressed voting rights for all, many suffragettes were still upset because it specifically states that black males have the ability to vote, but not women. November 5th, 1872. On November 5th, 1872, Susan B. Anthony took part in a very risky act. She illegally voted for Ulysses Grant in the presidential election. 2 weeks later, she was fined $100, which is the equivalent to about $210 now. And her beliefs were not accepted by the judge at her trial. She refused to pay the fine and was arrested for illegal voting.
1880, November 11th. Lucretia Mott sadly passes away from pneumonia in Cheltenham Township, but women's suffrage makes more progress as school suffrage is granted to women in New York, but the fight to vote politically continued.
1890, NAWSA is formed. In May 1890, Susan B. Anthony, Carrie Chapman Catt, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lucy Stone merged NWSA and AWSA to form NAWSA. NAWSA's main goals were to get the 19th Amendment passed and for equal rights. Their plan was to recruit college-educated and politically influencing members to vote for equal rights for women. 1894. The fight for suffrage continues despite after a women's suffrage amendment gained over 600,000 signatures and was submitted to the New York Constitutional Convention. Unfortunately, it was ignored.
1896. Idaho grants women's suffrage. 1910. Washington grants suffrage to women.
1911. NAOWS is formed to try and make the 19th Amendment fail and women still not have the vote. Consisting of both men and women, the head of the organization was Mrs. Arthur Josephine Dodge. The organization disbanded in 1920 after the 19th Amendment was passed in 1919. Some of their arguments to not let women have the vote were that women didn't want the vote, the public sphere was not right for women, the women did not have the time for that, and that it would overturn the proper power balance between women. 1912, Arizona, Kansas, and Oregon give women access to suffrage.
1913, Alice Paul and Lucy Burns formed the Congressional Union. Later renamed the National Women's Party, Alice Paul left the NAWSA due to being unsatisfied with guidelines of the group. She then decided to create her own group with Lucy Burns, NWP. while the NAWSA focused on ratifying the Women's Suffrage Amendment through a state level. The NWP seeked through a federal level. Night of Terror, November 14th, 1917. On November 14th, 1917, almost 33 suffragettes belonging to the National Woman's Party picketed the White House and in return were brutally beaten by guards from the Algonquin workhouse with clubs, thrown to the ground, punched, and kicked. Some of them were arrested and some were thrown in jail cells. And others were tortured for a range of 30 days to 6 months from ages 19 to 73 years old. The women were given rancid food, dirty blankets, prison attire, and forced to do prison works. Reports say Lucy Burns was handcuffed and forced to stand all throughout the night. Another had her head smashed against the bed's headboard and blacked out, while another arrestee was held for medical attention all night after suffering a heart attack. W.H. Whittaker, who ordered the treatment, believed he needed to put the suffragettes in their place and teach them a lesson. Fortunately, 8 other states, North Dakota, Ohio, Indiana, Rhode Island, Nebraska, Michigan, New York, and Arkansas, decided to give women the right to vote.
On the morning of September 19, 1918, President Woodrow took a trip to Capitol Hill to talk to the Senate about the 19th Amendment being passed. In a 15-minute address to the Senate, he urged them to pass the 19th Amendment, allowing all American women the right to vote. June 4, 1919, Women's Suffrage Amendment is passed. After over 7 decades of hard work to pass the 19th Amendment and give women the right to vote, Congress had finally passed the 19th Amendment. It was we the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who form the Union, men their rights and nothing more, women their rights and nothing less. Susan B. Anthony.
August 18th, 1920, 19th Amendment is ratified. The Congress had passed the 19th Amendment, but it was still not ratified. The requirement for the amendment to be ratified was that 36 states had to vote for it. However, only 35 states had currently voted for it, and Tennessee was the last state that was willing to try out. The votes at the moment had been tied, and Harry T. Burns' vote was the last chance. Burns later received a 15-page letter from his mother, Feb E. Burns, encouraging him to vote yes for women's suffrage. "Dear son," she wrote, "don't forget to be a good boy and help Miss Cat put the rat in ratification." Harry cast his vote, and the amendment was ratified, leaving the fight for women's suffrage behind after 72 years. "I knew that a mother's advice is always safest for a boy to follow, and my mother wanted me to vote for ratification," he said. "I appreciated the fact that an opportunity such as seldom as that to come to a mortal man to free 17 million women from political slavery was mine." Harry T. Burns.